It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I am really looking forward to talking with my guest today. Joining me all the way from the UK is Tim Hughes, founder of Social Selling Lounge, and really one of the world's leading experts on social selling. Now, we all know that growing sales is hard, and the whole process, sort of starts with developing new business, and then, but that's unfortunately work that most sellers don't enjoy. And then once you get the prospect, you got to move them through the funnel, and there's a lot of controversy about, what's the best processes to use. You have to be proactive outbound or inbound development of your leads, or do cold calling, or cold calling's dead, or social selling, and all that stuff. So like most things in life, it's not all about one thing or another, but how can you sort through the noise to find the right strategy to connect with the right decision makers? And so to help us sort this all out, we've got my guest today, Tim Hughes. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, good. Well,
thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I've been selling for 27 years. I was involved in a social selling rollout about 2-3 years ago, across 2,000 salespeople across Europe. And I'd been involved in social and have been for about 6 or 7 years. And I was looking for something to start blogging about, and suddenly realized I'd been given this amazing gift of being in the midst of this social selling rollout. And it's just taken off from there, really. I started using the skills, and I came up with this 5-stage methodology for people to use, and it's been fantastic. It's been an amazing ride especially the last 2 years. And 2016, there's going to be some things coming out as well, which I am not allowed to talk about, but it's going to be an amazing year.
Oh, good. I mean, things coming from the social media vendors, you mean?
Well, no, from me. There's a whole number of things. There's a whole number of things that are going to come out, which will certainly create and drive the debate about social selling.
Well, good. Well, I mean, and that's sort of interesting. You use the word debate because, the first things I was going to ask you is it seems a little bit ironic that really sort of the last half of 2015, there seemed to be this pushback against social selling, that, people claiming it was oversold. And so I guess the first question for you is, has it been oversold? Or is it just misunderstood?
I think it's misunderstood. A senior leader said to me recently, we tried social selling and marketing and it didn't work. It's like, well, hello, it's called social and it's called
selling, not marketing. Right?
And which part of that did you not get? And so what I think that there's people that have tried, and I think what also happens is that social selling. There's a lot of people out there that think social selling is just LinkedIn,
right?
And it's not,
or just Twitter,
or just Twitter. Yeah, we're now living in a digital world, and what that requires is you to change culture, behaviors, and strategy, and that's really what social selling is about. It's a way of us moving our offline life online, and how we actually use those things to help us sell. So that's really the change, and I think people have actually been using it as a way of. I just see if you look at marketing, generally what happened was that we wrote letters and then we threw out as many as we could. Then we moved to email and we basically threw out as many as we could, and that was great because we didn't have to buy stamps. We could just send them out for free. And the next thing is that what we're going to do is we're going to take content and we're just going to spam it out. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure how much of that we can see that can hit the wall, and hopefully we're throwing more mud at the wall than our competitors. And then the people go, oh yeah, well that's social selling. That's not. It's doing what we always did, which is spamming people with content and some of it, when you hit the wall, it will stick. A lot of it will fall off.
Well, I mean, even if social selling is misused or misapplied, it certainly has become irrevocably embedded in the modern sales process.
Yes.
I mean, you may be using LinkedIn poorly or inefficiently or ineffectively, but you're using it.
Yeah, I think most people have now got the handle of personal branding, and I think most people have now moved on to LinkedIn. I think you could pretty much say anybody who's in business, certainly within the commercial world, is now on LinkedIn, and they have made a start in understanding that it's not an online CV anymore. It's not about how many years you did your quota and that. It is actually about helping a customer. But I still think people are a bit bewildered about this thing, about why they should actually be doing that. They're usually doing it because they've probably read an article or they've told to be it, rather, or I see a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, we're now doing social selling," which is what we've done. Is we've gone out and told all our salespeople to have a LinkedIn profile that has a couple of articles that were written by the company, and hey, that's social selling.
Right.
There's a lot of people that, and of course, if you just do it because you've been told to do it, you'll go, well, I didn't get anything from it. Though I think, I've seen a lot of people that, even though they've been playing around with LinkedIn, even though they've sent a couple of emails, I've actually got through to people fairly senior, and that's been quite game changing for them when they go, wow, I've just spent all morning on the phone and got nowhere, and here it is. I've just used this IT system and sent an email, and I've actually got through to the person I was trying to get hold of. So I think certainly people that have grappled with it and decided to use it have actually got some benefit from it.
All right. Well, you have laid out a system that has 5 pillars of social selling success. I wanted to go through those because I thought it was an interesting construct to think about social selling, not just purely as a top of funnel lead development, prospect development activity, but really, as I said, as a construct for your entire sales process or the prospect's entire buying process. So let's go through those, and we'll go through them in order that you had them listed in your article. Yeah. So the first one you talk about is LinkedIn. So why is that top of the list?
Okay, so the first thing is that about social selling is that you're not completely doing social selling. You do it with other things. So you should still use the phone and email, and you still use social. It's just a channel for you to use. What we're not saying is that you have to use email or we're just going to use a telephone. You need to use all three things. And as you go through the sales process, there's a lot of talk about using social selling as a way of generating contacts or leads. Yes, you can, but you should actually be thinking, just as much as you use the telephone and use email through the whole of the sales cycle, you should be using social all the way through the sales cycle as well. So I talk about, certainly the first thing that people should need to get into is LinkedIn, and that's really around personal branding. If you look at the facts, whenever any of us go on now to actually buy something, for example, I just recently bought a car. Go back 20 years, I would have sat in front of, over lots of different weekends, gone to lots of car showrooms and sat in front of lots of car sales guys, and they would have told me about their cars. Now I don't need to do that. I basically go online and I search for what I want. I go onto Google. I can even configure it, and I can actually go into the car showroom and say, right, this is exactly the car that I want, and the garage down the road has it at 5,000 whatever cheaper. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean,
we're all in a situation where we're able to do that either through the PC or mobile, and all of our customers. It doesn't matter what we sell, whether we're selling mugs or whether we're selling multi-million-dollar IT systems. At the end of the day, our customers are more engaged and have more knowledge about our stuff than they ever had before. Most people's price books are online, and they know exactly how much it is, and they've probably made some calls, and they probably know what the discount is. So the thing that we have is that if you look at the figures, most people when they're buying are now about 65% of the way through the buying cycle when they engage with a salesperson.
Now that's a very controversial figure, though.
It is. Now it can be anything between 45%. I've seen some figures from some research saying it's 85%.
Well, I've seen some that last year that said 0. So
there can be there can be situations where you suddenly, where maybe you just go down the shops and you buy something.
Well, here's
But
the pushback to the. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've seen that, and when you actually read people's those articles, I don't know where they live, because whenever I buy anything, I go online and I research stuff. And I know that my customers do that, and I know that even though people may be looking at buying IT systems and they may be looking at things from a corporate perspective, they still go online and they still go and research. If you're going to buy an accounting system for your organization, you're still going to go to Google. You're still going to go in and put ERP in and do a search, or accounting systems, or whatever it is, before you actually engage with salespeople. And the reason for that is most buyers, I'm not saying 100%, most buyers will actually work in salesperson avoidance mode.
So here's the question, and believe me, I believe those numbers myself about people going through the sales process. But the pushback came from really people do a lot of outbound prospecting, proactive prospecting, saying that, hey, we're contacting people that had never really even thought about making a change until we reached out and touched them. And so that's like the research report that came from Serious Decisions last year, saying that, hey, that's actually a much broader and bigger percentage of the business to business selling pool than the people that are out doing their research and getting to a point where they need to talk to a sales rep before they finally do.
If you go back and listen to what I said in this interview, is I didn't ever tell anybody to stop calling. I still organize cold calling days, and I still see calling and interrupt selling as a mechanism to get in front of people that who probably haven't heard of you, or haven't actually done any research. I think that's a great method. Mm-hmm. But if you look at research from Google, what Google are basically seeing, there's a whole bunch of people that are going on and doing research for products, and certainly at an enterprise level. Now, if you break down the sales funnel from starting off with people that are sitting there and they don't even know that you've got a product, all the way through to closing a sale. So you're looking at top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. Each of those, as you go through and progress through the sales funnel, you need different tactics to make sure that you're engaging with those with prospects or customers through that sales funnel. Some of those tactics may be you need to put some YouTube videos up. Some of those tactics maybe you need to call them. It's different tactics all the way through the funnel.
Okay. No, I agree. So it's not all one thing or another.
No, it's not.
Agree.
No. And if you do something on LinkedIn and then sit there and wait for people to call, sorry, it's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, right?
The thing about personal branding is that, if you look at the research from Google, what the research from Google is saying is that there is most enterprise organizations, and I say most, not saying all, the senior management now realize that they don't understand digital disruption. So what they're doing is that they're delegating that to a bunch of people, which are generally between the age of 28 and 35. Again, this is Google saying this. They will know that because people are doing researches on Google will have, I guess, in Gmail. Therefore, those people generally do a number of things. First and foremost is that they're doing research, and they're engaging around about 65% of the way through the sales cycle. What they're doing is that they're usually coming up with a short list of 2, maybe 3. Some businesses, have to have 3 quotes, right. So they'll come up with a short list of 3. What they're doing at that point, if you're lucky enough to be on that short list of 3, that's really good. People between the age of 28 and 35 generally buy brands. So you need to be a branded organization to be on that short list. The bad news is that quite often people will have already been in that organization and have probably have written the RFP or have some way made some influence on that decision,
Right.
and you will be into a price war. So you will have your margins driven down. Most people will have researched what your price is and know what they can try and get. So what you're looking to do is actually try and hack the buying process by actually taking a step back along the pipeline and actually finding those people doing the research. And one of the ways that you can do that is by, in effect, being not looking like a salesperson, because what people were doing as they're going through that researching process is that they're in salesperson avoidance mode, just like I am before I actually configure the car I want and I get down to my shortlist.
Right.
So what you need to do is come up with on LinkedIn is a buyer-centric profile. We actually need to do a whole bunch of things. One of the first things you need to do is have a buyer-centric profile, which if somebody comes across you, then what they will do is that they go, oh, that's interesting. And what you need to do is I don't like the term added value because I'm not quite sure people know what that means. But what you need to do is provide a content that makes people curious and actually want to consume that content and look further. So, for example, I bought a filing cabinet recently, and I didn't know that there was different types of filing cabinets. And the only way that I could see to actually buy stuff was it was all full of salespeople saying, I can give you 30% off or 40% off, whatever. And it was, well, I don't even know what I want really from the filing cabinet. Now, if someone had written an article saying the top 10 things you need to know when buying a filing cabinet, and actually I'd found that on Google, then I probably would have found that. And the fact that I'm probably fairly happy in buying stuff from different parts of the world probably would have gone through and made that transaction. So that's where I'm giving you an example about how you need to actually be adding value and providing content that the person will consume when they'll go, okay, I need that, thank you, and I'm actually going to reward you for producing that piece of content by actually buying from you.
Yeah, and I think the important point for people that are listening to this is that the personal branding is not about touting your accomplishments. As you said, it's about triggering curiosity on the part of the buyer. Yes. Yeah. Big distinction, because I think you see it most profiles.
And the other thing is that you've got to, you need to. One of the things the mistake I see people making right now is like, well, I'm online, right? Okay, where's all that content that my company is creating? Right, let's all bang that out. Right now, when you're online, what you're trying to do is you're trying to come across as the person you are. I say a lot when I speak and at meetings and say, look, when I go to somebody's LinkedIn profile, usually before a meeting, I will make a judgment on what that person is like, whether they're boring, whether they're funny, whether they're interesting, before the meeting based on their LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. It is the advert for themselves. And if they're basically just pumping out corporate stuff, I'm just going to go, right, well, when you sit in front of me, all you're going to do is pump out corporate stuff. So if I ever got to the point where I sat down and said, look, come on, Rob, level with me. Is this really going to happen? I probably won't believe you, because one of the things that I need, and this goes back right to the days, when I started selling 27 years ago, is that you go in and what you're doing is you're building trust. Mm-hmm. And that trust is the same whether you're online or offline. People buy people. And you need to be showing that you care, that you can inform, that you can teach, and you are who you are just by being online. And those things are really important.
All right, excellent. Well, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, we're going to continue this great conversation we're having about the structure of social selling. We've hit 1 out of 5 points. We'll come back. We'll hit a few more before we go with my guest today, Tim Hughes. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. Welcome back to the show with my guest today, Tim Hughes. We're talking about social selling. So we covered the importance of why LinkedIn as sort of the first pillar of your 5 pillars of success in social selling. Second one is very interesting, and one I think that's overlooked quite a bit is you call it social media listening. So why don't you define that for the audience?
Yes, it's the first thing that I always recommend people do when they go onto something like Twitter is actually not to send a tweet, but to actually listen. And you need to go on and you need to start listening to your customers at a macro level. You're selling to Coca-Cola, so what are Coca-Cola saying? What's happening, and that kind of, we always did that because if we were going into an account that size, we would download their annual accounts, or we'd read the annual accounts, understand what was going on. But you also need to understand what's going on in the account at a micro level, and that's about going out and finding people and searching and finding people and searching people that have got that actually work there and can actually start tweeting about what's going on in the organization. And you start getting a feel for those people. And it may be that you'll actually find people that, well, it's not may, but you will find people, certainly if you start doing some searches on LinkedIn and Twitter, probably that you wouldn't find before. So these, quite often you'll find that, for example, in the sales methodology written by Holden, there's a view that there's a particular type of person, and if you read the book, The Connected Customer, they come up with this as well, which is that there is individuals in organizations that have that they don't necessarily, they're not high up in an organization, so they don't necessarily have rank, but they do actually have an element of authority. They're the type of people that whenever a big decision is made, the senior management turn to them and say, "Okay, Martin, what do you think about this product? Okay, right, we'll go with that." Mm-hmm. And they may not actually even be part of the decision-making process.
Exactly. I label those people the actual decision makers.
Well, yes. So those people will certainly have an influence, if not be the decision makers. I mean, I think it's on senior people actually don't necessarily make decisions. They actually they confirm the recommendations of people lower down in an organization.
Exactly.
And what you need to do, certainly in an enterprise space now, LinkedIn say that for every certainly B2B enterprise deal, 5.4 people make that decision. And therefore, you need to be getting and casting the net wider in the organization, and you can do that through social media. So that's why I'm saying, don't bound on to social media and start tweeting and stuff. Actually think about your accounts, think about your territory, take a step back and have a listen and think about what's going on with that.
Well, also the important thing, what you're talking about here too, from a practical standpoint, from a selling standpoint, is that it's going to tell you where to invest your time.
Yes.
Because what happens is that in general in enterprise selling is that the account executives do what I call oversell. They've been trained. I got to talk to the C-level. I got to talk to the C-level. And as I talk about in my book is, your products fall into one of two categories. They're either strategic or they're tactical. And there are very few strategic products that are sold out there. I mean, you have to rise to a certain level of complexity and investment level to meet that. So for 95% plus of the products out there, you're tactical. Find those people that you talked about that through social media listening that are the real recommenders and influencers and what I call the actual decision makers. Those are the people you want to invest your time in.
Yeah, and most things when you're selling at if you're selling at a B2B enterprise level, in most cases, people have already got something that you're trying to sell. So in effect, you're trying to push through change. There's an element or there will always be some element of transformation, and organizations in their DNA resist change.
Yeah, we all do.
So, I mean, when I started selling, I mean, one of the things that really fell into place with me was when I went on the training course and they said, "Oh, you need a coach or an angel or whatever it is, so an inside salesperson that's going to give you the inside track."
Well, then I'll call them mobilizers.
Okay, yeah, and that worked for me an awful lot. But I think that, you do need to have people that can actually say, right, I agree with this and I understand the change that we're going to go for.
And this is the third pillar. You talk about influencer marketing. So we know there are these 5.4 people out there. You've been listening to identify them. Now your third pillar, influencer marketing, you've got to be proactive.
So there's a whole so influence is a massive subject in itself. So there's influence that I have because I have so many followers and I have a blog and things. But there's also influence that people like KPMG or Deloitte or Gartner have. And what we're certainly seeing is a change taking place where people are going to KPMGs and Gartners, but they're also going to social media people and social media influencers and taking advice. So Brian Solis, Ted Rubin, Brian Kramer, myself, and those people have influence in themselves. Mm-hmm. But you will also have people who will have influence within the account. If I go back to the buying the car scenario, as well as actually going on and configuring it, I went to a couple of people who I knew had bought a similar car and said, hey, Mike, you've got a Mini. What do you think of it? I keep being told they keep breaking down all the time. Oh, no, they don't. I've got two and I really love it. And so, you will always go and seek out influence. And certainly in the B2B enterprise space, quite often what people forget is that actually the influence may actually not be within the account. So there may be someone that left and they used to work at Coca-Cola, but now they go and work at Pepsi. But the people at Coca-Cola know Fred, and Fred's a great guy, and Fred knows a lot about architecture. So we ring up Fred at Pepsi, and he's the one that's actually telling Coke, what things to buy and what experience he's got. So quite often what you'll find is if you start building a network and an influence map within your accounts, what you'll find is that there will be certainly influence that's going on in social, and that may not be going, and you may need to look wider than just the account that you're looking at.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure very few people think about that as influencers outside the account. Very, very interesting. So the fourth pillar, then, we talk about collaboration.
Yes.
And so are you talking about collaboration in the sense of sort of the value co-creation with the prospect and developing a solution? I mean, what's your aspect there?
Okay, so the collaboration that I've seen is quite often the internal collaboration between sales and marketing. So I've seen situations where you've got sales and marketing, they don't really understand each other. They sit at other sides of the office and throw stones at each other and they don't talk. In the current world of digital, we don't need to do that anymore. We need to work together. We need to understand. We need to have a common form of terminology that we understand, so we know what a lead is, and certainly some of the modern marketing terminology, BQLs, SQLs, and that means that we now know what a lead is and what a lead looks like because of the various terminology that modern marketing has provided to us. But certainly, we need to be working together, sales and marketing. Some people call it smarketing. Some people call it smails.
Well, we're also getting into this whole account-based marketing.
Yeah. And then what you're doing and that kind of rolls on to then being providing more personalization and allowing people to become, allowing the marketing to be, in some cases you do want to have one-to-many marketing. In other cases, you do want to actually have one-to-one marketing. Mm-hmm. But what you need to be doing is we need to be working with marketing and sales working together rather than kind of that sort of like two adversaries across the office.
Right.
And that's how what I've seen with collaboration is bringing those people together and getting them to collaborate.
Yeah, and I think if you do that, as you talked about, there's a little bit of personalization, individualization that goes on there. And to me, it's sort of the analogy is like personalized medicine, right? We're going to take a genetic sample. From that genetic sample, we're going to be able to understand exactly what medications will work best for you if you have specific type diseases. Well, this is sort of similar, right? We're going to personalize the treatment for you, if you will, from a sales and marketing standpoint to the customer.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, and so the fifth pillar, and we'll talk about that briefly before we move to the last segment of the show, is marketing automation.
Yes. So when I was selling, I would spend half a day a week trying to get those the prospects that I'd phoned up, and they'd said, give me a call back in 3 months or give me a call back in 6 months. And that was time consuming, and I'd find a white paper and fire it off, and sometimes they would buy it and sometimes they wouldn't. And now with marketing automation, there's lots of different platforms from small to large, and you can actually automate that process. Now, marketing automation for salespeople listening is actually named wrong. It actually should be called sales automation. Marketing automation should actually be seen by salespeople as a sales tool. And it's a sales tool that if you actually opt in certain clients to be nurtured, that frees up time for you to be sitting in front of customers closing deals. So you're not spending that half a day a week nurturing stuff and hoping that those prospects that are 3-6 months away are going to come down the track. You're letting the automation system do that for you.
Right.
Now, there are ways that you can do it for nothing. And one of them is to see your LinkedIn as a marketing automation platform. And what you do is you make connections to your customers and prospects, and you're putting out information that they're going to think is really cool and interesting. And what they're going to do is they're going to see that, and then hopefully they'll even like it and propagate that through their own networks. But what they'll be seeing is, hey, this guy, is really interesting. He seems to know his stuff about personalized medicine, and when I come out to buy from it, he's going to be the first person I contact. So LinkedIn is also a place where you can actually nurture your contacts.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, we're sort of running out of time, but that's a great answer and great overview of this 5 pillars, and we'll give contact information in just a second. But we're going to move to the last second segment of the show where I ask questions I ask of all my guests, and some you can have short answers, others might take a little bit more. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So the first is a hypothetical scenario I pose to each of my guests is, imagine that you've just been hired as a sales leader at a company whose sales have stalled out. So senior management's really looking at you to get things turned around in a hurry. What 2 things would you do the first week on the job that would have the biggest impact?
Probably wouldn't expect this from a social selling person, but I actually start people cold calling.
Interesting, yeah. Okay.
Because I actually think it's the fastest way for you to get appointments quickly. Mm-hmm. The second thing is I would start a social selling program, and that would probably kick in after a certain amount of time.
And what would be your first step? I know the answer, I think. Well, what's the first step in your social selling program?
Well, I'd get everybody on LinkedIn and get them actually using social from certainly from getting their own personal brands and getting them to actually curate their own content and becoming masters of their own niches, or niches, as you would say in the States.
I had a guest where we kept saying that word differently, and we were, by the end of the interview, literally we were saying something sort of in the middle. All right, so here's some rapid fire questions for you. You can give me one word answers, or you can elaborate. So when you're selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
I'm a chameleon. So I'm different. I'm a different person in front of different people.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's, I've always been a new business salesman. I've never really liked relationship salesman. I've already liked going in and immediately building rapport within, first meeting, and then, selling the deal, maybe looking after it and then moving on to something else. But it's always, I've never had a problem, understanding someone and immediately, as long as there's a sale in progress, I've always gone in and built rapport.
Okay. Rapport building. Good. So name one tool you use for managing your own sales that you can't live without.
I can't live without social media. It's part of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's your sales role model?
I did Miller Heiman and Holden sales methodology, and they held up for probably 20 years of my life. And I think that they were fantastic methodologies. There's some great social sales guys out there at the moment. Jack Kowalski, Tony Hughes in Australia. And they're really killing it and really pushing the debate forward. And I look up to them as well.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Jack he'll be happy to hear about that.
Yeah.
So what's the one book that every salesperson should read?
Right now, I think that you need to read The Connected Customer.
Okay. Do you know the author offhand?
I don't know.
All right. We'll find that. It'll be on the website. Show notes pages for people with the author's name. All right. Here's a really tough question. So what music's on your playlist now?
I'm actually an old rocker.
Mm-hmm. Anybody in particular?
Well, I actually have a copy of the limited edition David Bowie album on clear vinyl that everyone's basically trying to get a hold of a copy, and
whoa,
they've got they're supposed to be selling for like a $1,500 on eBay or something like that. And I'm looking at it right now. It's still in the cellophane wrapper, and I'm just debating whether it's going to cost me about $1,000 to unwrap it.
Do you have a turntable?
I do have a turntable. I collect vinyl. I have 2,000 records.
Wow. So this is worth a little detour. So what is the most prized possession you have there?
I'm an old rocker. And Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, all of those things.
Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin is my favorite. Those new re-releases, I bought them all in the big box and that, and
wow,
they're probably my prized possessions. All vinyl.
All right, next time I'm in London, we're coming over for a listening party.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Excellent. So, what's the first sales activity you do every day?
Always go in and check my social.
Okay.
I use Buffer. I use the free version to buffer up tweets. So I'm tweeting during the day when I'm working.
Right.
So I get up in the morning, I basically post something on LinkedIn, and I buffer up the tweets for the day. And that's really so, there's some constant engagement going on. Mm-hmm. Now, I must admit, I will say that whenever I get in the evening, I go through all of my tweets and I answer everything manually. So even though I'm using automation, I'm still keeping the engagement going. I'm not advocating people just use automation and pump stuff out. It's just a way of getting through the day that I can work and I can tweet at the same time.
Okay. Last question for you then.
Yeah.
What's the one question you get asked most frequently by salespeople?
What's the ROI of social selling? And
your answer is?
If you have to answer me where have you been for the last 2 years? So I have there's a blog. So if you go to socialsellinglounge.com, there's a blog on there that talks about a friend of mine who's generating 10 C-level meetings a week by using Twitter. And as I usually say to people, I said, even if you generated one, you'd probably be in a better place than right now. So last week he did 12, but hey, what's another 2 C-level meetings between friends. That blog's been out there for 12, maybe 18 months. It's one of my best, I shouldn't say sellers because it's free. I don't know how many times it's been retweeted. Last time I looked, it was about 7,000 times. The information is out there, and if you want to get in social selling, and when I'm talking about social selling, if you want to make money and start making your quota and getting into social, the information is out there, and you can start getting into it.
Right. If you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, you want to build your business same way.
Absolutely. If you just a one woman or a one man band, you can use. I've got a blog that talks about how people with. I know a guy that he sells first aid. He's 70 years old. He used to spend £20,000. So that's what $35,000 a year on advertising. He now doesn't spend a penny, and he's making $750 a week through first aid courses by using Twitter, which the only cost to him is his time.
Right. Well, excellent. Well, I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank
My guest
you.
today, Tim Hughes. Tim, how can people find out more about you?
So I'm on Twitter. I'm Timothy_Hughes. I'm also, my blog is socialsellinglounge.com. And if you search for Timothy Hughes or Tim Hughes on LinkedIn, you should find me.
Yeah, and I follow Tim, and I recommend people do as
Thank
well.
you, Andy.
Lots of good content out there on social selling. So remember, friends, make it a part of your day, every day, to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And much as you did today, with listening to our guest, Tim Hughes, as he shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business, if you subscribe to this podcast, you'll make sure you don't miss any of these conversations. Really important. So thanks for joining us. And until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.